Welcome to Three, a part of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. I'm Gill with Joel Drucker and Amy Lundy on this post-Roland Garros edition, where we have a number of topics to get into, including what's next for Djokovic and Nadal, looking ahead to Wimbledon and the Olympics. What is going on with the number three in relation to the WTA Tour? Discussion that we've had off the air a couple times that we're very excited to bring on the air. And then also Roger Federer commencement speech at Dartmouth. There's some good stuff from there. We're going to hit on that at the end. But let's start with Novak. Has the surgery on his meniscus tear, and now the question is schedule. Is Wimbledon going to happen? Is Olympics going to happen? If Olympics is the priority, do you play Hamburg, the ATP 500? There are reports that Novak does want to play that event. Nothing definitive on Wimbledon, Joel. Like, nothing has come. There's been no yes or no. There's been speculation, but nothing definitive on Wimbledon.
I suspect he will not play Wimbledon. I don't like predictions, as we know, but I think Novak have the surgery in June, have to recover. He might still be at Wimbledon because I could see Novak with his awareness and appreciation of the history of the game showing up in a nice all-white outfit on some middle Sunday or sometime with a greeting and a hello, but I don't think he's going to want to play Wimbledon. He may have in other years, maybe, but I think his strong desire to excel at the Olympics and return to Paris. Isn't it nice how this Olympics is in Paris after both Rafa and Novak exiting Roland Garros early? There's a nice symmetry to that. So I think that's what I think is going to happen.
Taylor Fritz has really set the standard on this 3-week recovery on the meniscus tear. So, he did that, but he is younger, and Novak is he's got a lot to play for, and so I would be conservative with it, and I think he will too. And he's just at a point in his career where he doesn't have to do anything he doesn't want to do, and everything can be on his terms. So my hope, selfishly, I would love to see him at Wimbledon, but my hope is at least that we get a totally healthy Novak for the Olympics.
Yeah, I think he should be careful, just without having any medical knowledge of exactly what's going on. I think the prevailing sentiment is that's a tough timeline. And Taylor did it. Amy, there are two things about Taylor Fritz. He's younger, yes. The second thing is, he's known to be a little bit of a psychopath with the injuries. I mean, we had the Indian Wells thing, really busted up his ankle and was like, "No, I'm playing the final." Ended up winning it, made for a great story. But I've spoken with Paul Annacone about Taylor, and he's a little bit crazy with the injuries. Like, he likes to play through them. Probably, I don't think Novak will take the same approach. And then you also have the opportunity to stay on the same surface that you've been playing on, clay, and play the Hamburg 500, which is right after Wimbledon, which is going to be a great build up to the Olympics. And what I'm getting excited about from a Djokovic Nadal perspective is this great German city of Hamburg that has an ATP 500 and is probably in the worst calendar spot of the year for a 500 because everybody just wants to rest after Wimbledon. They might get Djokovic and Nadal both playing in Hamburg. And I have no connection to Hamburg other than my grandma was born there and is from there. So I do.
Oh, then you do.
Yeah, so that's my connection. I've never been there though, but I'm very excited for them over there.
Well, it'd be neat to see a little love for that post Wimbledon July clay season was once a fairly dynamic part of the tennis year, particularly for the Europeans. So to see that being that German Open, which that tournament was or German Championships as well, was a significant title to win. So that'd be kind of neat to see getting that some of that exposure and attention right after Wimbledon. And wow, that would be amazing to have Rafa and Novak playing there. That would be tremendous. And yeah, so and I think and it appears that Nadal, not to get ahead of ourselves, but Nadal is probably not going to play Wimbledon either. Period.
Yes. Yes. One thing on Djokovic with the injury being something that, as we've learned more about it, and it's a point that I just think is important to make, it wasn't like his knee was totally fine, and then bang, something happened. His knee was bothering him for a couple of months, and then it got aggravated in that match at Roland Garros. But I think it was kind of a wear and tear injury from what Novak has said. And I just think it's the first little sign. This isn't a positive thing. I don't take joy in saying this, but it is the first time that I think Djokovic really has had like a very 37-year-old ish kind of thing pop up. Not that young people can't have knee issues and tear their meniscus, right? Or Fritz did it. Shapovalov has had knee issues. But for Djokovic, who's been so healthy, especially in the lower body, everything, other than the elbow thing, and a shoulder thing here and there. The lower body has been so pristinely healthy, and this is the first time where I think it's like, okay, that was probably a little bit of an age injury.
Well, that's how these injuries happen. I mean, Roger didn't have an event when he slipped in the bathtub. Remember the one a few years ago and Roger hurt himself?
Mhm.
Obviously, this stuff is building up. I mean, the wear and tear these guys put on their bodies is just unbelievable, no matter how great they are. I mean, they're thoroughbreds, they're incredibly fit and all that stuff, but still, a lot of miles.
Yeah, absolutely. As for Nadal, Wimbledon, he didn't think immediately after losing in Paris. He said, "I don't think that's a great idea to switch surfaces." And I'm just thinking about when Rafa had his knee tendonitis, and he was young at this time. We're talking 2011, 2012, 2013. He did not like playing at Wimbledon. He thought it stressed out his knees. I think he had trouble with the low bouncingness after the super, physical clay court season. So I'm just not surprised that at this point in his career, he's thinking about going back on a grass and then switching back to clay for the Olympics. And he's like, yeah, that doesn't sound fun. Like that's not what I'm looking for right now and not what my body's looking for, Amy.
It's just amazing that a player like Nadal won at Wimbledon, knowing how his topspin works. And, on grass, a heavy topspin ball would only sit up and benefit your opponent. He had to adjust and he had to use other skills and do other things. So it's just a testament to his greatness that he was able to win there. But would it shock you, knowing that he's two behind in the slam tally, he's two behind Novak, and he's feeling good? And, would if Novak doesn't play Wimbledon, let's say he doesn't, would it shock you if Nadal entered?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it would. The slam tally on those terms is meaningless to Rafa. I think what matters is his body, his health, and I think he really does care about the Olympics and having the chance to play them on clay because it's not this is he's not his Wimbledon. Yeah, he's had obviously he's won it twice, been to three other finals, but no, I don't think he think, oh, with Novak out, here come I don't think Rafa his mind even works in that place. I'm sure someone has suggested to him, hey, there's no Novak, and Novak's won it more, and Novak's beaten you there. So therefore, I think I could say no, because he's pointed towards back to Paris.
Yeah, and I just think a healthy dose of fear, which is not a bad thing, but I think when it comes to the prospect of going to play grass and then back to clay, it's just a matter of am I going to get hurt doing this? And
Yeah, you're
that
one drop shot, you're one shot hit behind you away from ruining from ending your career that way.
Right, grass can be scary. Like we talk about incidents and Novak not really having like this traumatic one incident with the knee and it being more of a gradual thing from what he said. Tennis is like very lucky that we actually don't have a lot of those. Oh, he stepped wrong and tore his ACL.
I
It's
know.
actually so fantastic. It's something I really appreciate about the sport. I know, I have friends who play basketball or something, and they're so much more likely to like tear their Achilles and not be able to walk for 3, 4 months than me playing tennis. And I actually feel like I might get a wear and tear injury, but I'm not gonna like snap a ligament all of a sudden, knock on wood. Um, so it's actually a great thing in tennis. But if there's one surface where that happens, it's grass. You have those nasty slips.
I know, but do you have like evidence to back that up? I'm just, like,
Well, no, I have incidents like Del Potro. cracked his kneecap, right? On
So
the
we
grass.
call that anecdotal.
Yeah, but
Yes.
you know what? That's where Rafa's going to live.
Well, okay, but here's the
That's
thing.
where Rafa lives in the anecdotal
Well,
world.
that's why I was going to say, to answer my own question, and you guys make amazing points. And by the way, Rafa's already said, I don't think that would be a good idea. I think that was his exact quote. But by the same token, Rafa loves to compete if he can. You know what I mean? So it wouldn't shock me. It maybe would be mild surprise if he ends up entering Wimbledon, but it wouldn't shock me just because the guy loves to compete.
It would shock me because I would think it was funny. And I think I know the point about, I get the point about the data. I think the very nature of becoming a pro tennis player, I'm not about data. I'm about the anecdotal experience, which is me, the singular athlete who defies all odds to become a world-class athlete. So it's Rafa thinking, no, yeah, he loves to compete, but he knows his body. He's 38. And, I think that the Hamburg wild card is the considered activity, which has a pragmatism to it that might, okay, so yeah, I'm trying to measure which I'd be more. This Hamburg wild card, kind of see that. The Wimbledon, I would be shocked.
Yeah.
So is that how far is that Hamburg wild card after Wimbledon? What, a
That's
week later?
First round of Hamburg, day after Wimbledon ends.
Okay.
interesting. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's the same. Okay. All right.
By the way, on data, tennis probably needs to do better on injury data in terms of the balls, surfaces, because, I mean, Amy's right when she says we need data on these things. We don't have it. But
Data, length of matches, right? Sort of like the 5 set folklore, the ball folklore. I mean, you're right, Amy. The whole point is that a lot of this stuff is anecdotal folklore, right?
all right,
That's
so a big three WTA thing has been thrown around a lot. And, for the last 2 years, the top three has been consistent in Iga, Sabalenka, and Rybakina. So there has been that stability and that consistency
What do you
there,
mean top three?
yeah.
meaning they have been consistently consisted of the top three in the rankings. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
They've
I
been
mean,
top three in
when
the
this
rankings.
started, when this first started really bubbling up, golf was three, and that was the problem that I was having.
When after the U.S. Open?
Uh,
Because okay, you're right. Because right now, I mean, Rybakina is four right now, and she has been. The last time she was three was Wimbledon last year. So you're actually right that
oh.
she's been four. Yeah, never mind.
Let's get
No,
to the
I'm not.
topic at hand. I'm going to get to the topic at hand here. The topic at hand is
So
that I'm sorry, Gil. Go on.
no, I was just gonna say. I mean, I was just trying to set it up. I was just trying to
Yeah.
set up.
Yeah,
I
but
was
I
trying to set
caught
up.
you.
You
I
did. You
caught
caught
you.
me. You caught me. But I was just so okay.
You're not alone, Gill. You're not
Since
alone.
my set the table of this topic was wrong. Amy, I'm gonna let you set the table. Why did people start calling Rybakina, Sabalenka, Iga big three?
I have my theories, which they're not proven, so I'm gonna leave a couple of theories for another day. But let me maybe say this theory that I think Joel is really gonna like and appreciate. Um, Coco Gauff does not win in a way that is pleasing to some people, particularly lately. And I'm not talking about Roland Garros, I'm talking about a period of time after she won a tournament. I think it was in New Zealand or the Aussie swing. Between that time and before Roland Garros, where she was really struggling with double faults. Okay. We're talking like a couple of matches, she had 17 double faults and still won the match. People find that the cognitive dissonance is like, well, she shouldn't have won, but she did win. And her rankings and her results are, they're good, to such a point that she's now number 2 in the world. So I think she has these amazing gifts and she's young and she's working through some of the other stuff, but that's not pleasing to some people. So therefore, they don't like the way that she's winning necessarily, so that they see that she has quote unquote holes in her game, which everybody has holes in their game. So that's a theory as why they don't recognize her as one of the big three.
Well, okay, I'm going to bring another part to this. I think there's this desire. This is where the species is at. We've talked about this ourselves. Let's call it threeism. Right down to our show, by the way. Three. The Trinity, the Kingston Trio. Three takeaways. Like, for example, when people give public speeches, it always gets to finish with three things. And then in tennis, long before Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer, there are other threes that were gathered. There was Borg, Connors, and McEnroe. There was Martina, Chris Evert, and Tracy Austin for a time. There's almost a species-like cognition about clumping things, triage. You know, to go to the hospital. No one says, let's put that in a quartet for you. It's triage. It's kind of like that's how our brains are kind of working these days, these thousands of years. And I think there's been and then I think with the woman, the ascent of Sabalenka was a bit not surprising, but kind of pleasing because of the energy she brought to it. Rybakina surprisingly wins Wimbledon, and then when Iga loses, the way we know she can be beaten. We see it now. Overpower her, hit her right off the court, and she's so humble and thoughtful. It gives a veneer of fragility that she's really not that number one. It's a three. See, there are three up there, and I've written that too at times. When you look at the numbers over the last three years, she has been the dominant force in women's tennis. She really has, but she doesn't prevail of that. It's like some people when they're number one are like, I am the ruler of the game. And there's a benevolence to Iga, a humbleness, a kindness that I don't know, it's something even beyond a benevolent ruler. She's even more kind. So then it opens up, and the willingness, there needs to be a three. There needs to be a three. Look how good it was in men's tennis. They had a three. So
obsession with the number three. That is at the root of this.
Present company included.
But I love grouping players. Like, I actually think it's one of the most informative things you can do is you create, okay, where are we at right now on tour? What's the tier one? What's the tier two? What's the tier three? But Joel, you're right. There's nobody in Iga's tier. It's a big one by most metrics, because if you're saying that Sabalenka is like Iga, you can't really make that argument. Now, last year, Arena was deep at every slam. And Swiatek won Roland Garros and had disappointing slam losses outside of that. So that was your argument for Sabalenka. But as that has started to dissipate, I mean, you just look at big titles. Sabalenka's got one big title in the last 52 weeks, and Swiatek has 6. So it's very clear that Swiatek is better than Sabalenka. I don't think you group them together. I think it's pretty clear that Rybakina, I don't know that she's done enough. I mean, then you can kind of debate after that. But
this clumping, it's like, and I love it. It needs it. Tennis needs it. And I finally told someone who follows the game, but stop telling me what tennis needs.
Well, tennis doesn't need it, but I'm trying to analyze, like, Joel, if I'm trying to analyze who are the favorites to win the tournament, who are the secondary kind of contenders, and then who are like maybe the outside contenders. Like, I think that's an informative exercise.
That's an analytical exercise that's based on an analysis of performance. But the idea of trying to will into existence a rivalry, a triad, a grouping, a next gen, these things are marketing tools which can emerge. But it's like the way I sometimes feel rivalries have been birthed out of conference rooms, because tennis needs that. It needs to have that. It's like things just occur as they occur. Is it necessarily bad or good that, let's say, 8 slams in a row are won by 8 different people? That's talking, like I said that to a friend. I said, are you talking as a fan or a promoter or a sponsor? What are you talking as, really? The game occurs. The game occurs, and these results happen. And so big 4, big 5, top 10, you know?
I think you really have to strain to kind of include Rybakina, but not include golf at this point. They've each won one slam. The slam that Rybakina won, Sabalenka wasn't at because of the Belarusian ban. Goff beat Sabalenka at the U.S. Open. Like there's all sorts of things that you can look at. But the one thing that a lot of people say, no, Goff doesn't belong in there, it's because of her poor record against Iga. She's a little bit unlucky because they've played a gabillion times. She keeps landing in her side, and prior to her Goff having such a good ranking, she was landing in her quarter a lot. So the others haven't. That hasn't been the case. But now Goff is number 2. So if this continues to play out the way it is, at Wimbledon, at least they'll be on the opposite side.
That's right. That's a good point. I mean, I think, again, if you just look at it and you're saying Rybakina is the third member of some big three and you're leaving Coco out, you have basically no leg to stand on there analytically. I think, Amy, your point about how Coco wins is absolutely correct. I think people have trouble appreciating it. She wins a lot of close matches. She's mentally tough. She's physically tough. She has a weakness that everybody loves to talk about. I don't think Rybakina is I don't think everybody's bagging on Rybakina's movement the same way everybody's bagging on Goff's forehand. But is Rybakina's movement just as much of a detriment to her ability to be elite? Well, actually, it's not a detriment to ability to be elite. Is Rybakina's movement just as much of a detriment for her ability to beat Swiatek and win slams? I think so.
Well, we're going to see, and the thing is, we see. So I like that. I think we look at movement, we look at forehands, we look at transition skills, but we don't have this kind of conference room based clumping. You know what I mean? Like it needs to be. We must will into existence a new big three.
Let's be accurate, right?
What?
Like let's be, if we're gonna clump, let's be accurate, because I don't have a problem with clumping. It's just let's clump correctly.
But I mean, I think there's clumping based on analysis and results, and there's clumping on desire to will it into existence, like we're
right.
like poster committee, like we're creating the poster for the tournament and see. And now there's a big three because this is what tennis needs is a big three. We need to have. It's like it's just look at what's really happening, and then you see what's really happening. You see what's going, and you're spot on. Maybe about like Rybakina and Coco. You look at the results. Okay, yeah, these are top 5 players. I mean, these are all great players. And why don't we just look at what's making them thrive rather than trying to will into existence something? It's like I remember when someone asked me if, oh, Wawrinka's playing well. Is he now worthy of being in the big three? It is not. It's not a commit. It's not an institution.
Yeah, right. And to that point, Joel. Yeah, and to that point, Joel, there might have been some reluctance for us to even take this topic on because it's like, well, who says big three? But it is a thing because first the fans were talking about it, then the media was talking about it. I've seen it mentioned on Tennis Channel and ESPN.
And many races.
And then the players were talking about it. Sabalenka herself said, I'm just happy to be a member of this new big three. So it is a thing, okay? It is a thing that people are trying to will into existence.
And we think it's not fair to Coco, and I also think it's not fair to Iga, because I think Iga,
you make a good point.
It's a big one. Like if you look at it, it's a big one.
I resent it as a fan of the sport. I mean, it's like and I'm not joking about it. I think what we need to do is talk with some kind of cognitive scientist about how the brain works, about what is it? What is it? It's like it's not just numerology. What is it? What is it about wants us to have things in 3, including our show? We know we don't. There's not room on this show for a 4th. Sorry.
Well, there is the rule. I don't think this is related, but it's a major rule of comedy that the first time it's funny, the second time it's even funnier, the third time it's the funniest, the 4th time you've had enough. It's over.
Look, in public speaking, tell them what you're going to say, tell them, and then tell them. And there's a whole way. And again, there's a whole way. There's some about 3 about how the mind works around seeing things in threes. And we know a lot of podcasts, not just ours, they have three, and not just tennis podcasts, but you see a lot of the two is too binary. Look, um, uh, disclosure, Amy and I started some of this podcast ourselves, and it's two. We weren't quite getting the music.
Mm-mm.
We needed a Gill.
I have one more point. I have one more point.
Uh-huh.
As far as anointing Iga as kind of the leader in the clubhouse, I don't think because of her personality and Joel, you've talked a little bit about that already. And because of her star gravitas, her level of star gravitas, I don't think the tennis world has been super excited to put her on that pedestal. I think the tennis world has been more excited to say, look at this rivalry between these other players who can challenge Iga. And I just wonder, like, for Roger Federer, where the tennis world was like, well, this guy's incredible. Like, we definitely want him on that pedestal. He's number one. There's no equal.
He's the
I
GOAT.
think exactly. It's a very different vibe in terms of how ready people are to do that.
Well, but like I said, and she helps. This isn't good or bad. She helps. She wishes not to be coronated either.
Mm-hmm.
Roger enjoyed, and this will segue. Roger was happy to be coronated. He was happy to wear a crown. And Iga, please, please have it just. I'm trying to win matches here. Please, please let me try to win. And then the way to beat Iga isn't the way when Iga loses, when she's lost. She's not just cleverly beaten by someone who came up with clever shots. She's pummeled. I mean, when you see her lose sometimes in a major, like when Ostapenko beat her at the U.S. Open last year, she's been 6-1 in the third set. That's the queen, but it's like, well, yes, that's the way to play her. And you see, by the way, that's how Coco tried to play her in Paris, and it didn't quite work for Coco. But
But
so
but Osaka played her that way, and
right,
and she was almost there.
that's right. So for a while, so Iga looks. There's a way that she can look vulnerable. That's why I'm intrigued to see what her mind and game is for the aggression slam of Wimbledon.
Mhm.
If she's
Well,
good at the homework slam, but is she good for the bravado slam? The slam where you all about belief and opportunism.
she's upped her serve speed on average 10 miles per hour. She's
That's
being more patient and more calm when being attacked by the ultra aggressive players. So she's still getting better. And she was pretty good last year, and I think she's better this year. So
backed up 5 majors, man. 23. She's terrific,
Yeah.
but
yep.
performance based. So it's not as based on her being like, look at me, I am ruling women's tennis.
All right, let's end on this Federer Dartmouth graduation speech. That's not commencement speech. There's the real term for it. Okay, Roger gave 3 lessons. Joel,
Three. 3.
Lessons. That's right.
Yeah, we're gonna finish right.
uh,
Three minutes in one.
Joel, which one of these resonates most with you? They're all good, so this will be a tough decision.
Well, the effortless he
Well,
spoke
wait,
about.
no, let me tell the viewers what the 3 lessons are. So, 1, effortless is a myth. 2, it's only a point. Essentially, I'm going to give a quote from this lesson. When you're playing a point, it has to be the most important thing in the world, and it is. But when it's behind you, it's behind you. And 3, third lesson, life is bigger than the court.
I'll go with 1. I love the effortless as a myth, and I love that he's talked about. Pete Sampras told me that too. It's like they both said, and Roger said this in the speech. If you only knew how hard I worked to make it look this easy. And I think people enjoy the effortlessness thing as a way to exonerate ourselves. See, he's just a natural talent. Look at him. He's just got some talent that I could never imagine. Oh, you mean he worked? What's that say about my work ethic? And I think for Roger to invoke that, and in the speech he talked about how at the tournaments, like we've all watched Roger practice at the tournaments, he looks like he's just taking a horse around for a little spin on a Sunday morning. But the hard yards, I talked to Mackenzie McDonald once about working with in Dubai. Some pretty hard work in the hot weather and the 2-on-1s and the 11-point games and all the stuff that we know, and Roger putting in the work to do that. So I think that's the best one. What do you guys think?
I think it's interesting that it's just a point mentality, especially for a guy that, held match points against Djokovic in very tense situation, meaningful situations.
How many times has he done that in majors? 3.
I know. Yeah. Oh, three. But for the most part, that notwithstanding, I think it's great advice, because how often has a coach said to you, or do coaches say you've got to have amnesia, and let that go? And I think some of the best players in the world, like Roger, are able to let certain points go and not attach too much meaning to them.
The third lesson, life is bigger than a court, actually confirmed a theory that I've had about Roger for a while, which is that the fact that he enjoyed life on tour so much, and that everything, and Joel, this is a term that you've used, downstream, everything's downstream with Roger, that contributed to him not burning out. And it contributed to the longevity that he had that was kind of revolutionary before, Nadal and Djokovic were kind of right behind him and did similar things. Novak even better. But it's like if everything's really hard for you on tour and you're not enjoying yourself or doing certain things for your mental health, good luck playing until you're 38. It's probably not going to happen for you. But Roger credited his life is bigger than a court mentality with his longevity. So I thought that was super interesting.
Agreed.
What a treat for the Dartmouth class of 2024. That'll do it for this episode of 3. Remember, we're available on all podcast platforms. Appreciate it if you leave a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. We will see you next time on the next episode of 3.